using Zoom. I know for many of you, this may be something that you might be used to at this point, but it's crazy to imagine that I'm here in my sitting room. I'm here also in different parts of East and North London, South London, all of these different places. We're all able to connect, and I'm genuinely blessed about that. So if I say anything, or if you have any questions, or if I say a question and you have a response, don't hesitate to answer. So without further ado, my topic is about wisdom and knowledge. And I know when people hear that topic, you might feel like you know enough already. So I guess you could rephrase the topic and call it, how much do you know? If someone was to ask you to tell them about yourself, how many of you could tell them, a very in-depth explanation about yourself? I mean, like maybe like a raise of hands or something like that. If you'd be able to, if I asked you like, oh, tell me about yourself, would you be able to tell me about who you are, what you're interested in? Does that sound like something people are able to do? I'm going to imagine people said yes. Okay. Okay, so why I'm asking that question is because I'd imagine many of us may think that we know ourselves pretty well. You know yourself pretty well, you know what you're about. Now imagine I was asking you to tell me stuff about the world. Tell me things about maybe science. Maybe science isn't your subject. Tell me about maths. Tell me about something else. You know, many times in this life we're very curious. We're curious human beings. If I'm going to be honest, I really do like spending time with children, but children have this habit of asking one question. They love asking why. You tell them, oh, we have to do this. Why? Because we have to do this for this reason. Why? And it's just like continuous back and forth with them asking why. I don't know if anyone has ever had to deal with a child like that. They just love to ask questions. And as you grow up, I think for many of the youth and even the adults here, there's almost like an expectation that you will know enough, you know? There's an expectation where, people may ask you, oh, what is it that you want to do with the rest of your life? That's probably a question many of the 15, 16-year-olds are being asked. And I guess I can imagine that's a bit of a hard question, you know, how at that age you're supposed to be expected to plan out the rest of your life. It's a bit crazy. It's a bit of a tough question. I remember when I was 15, I thought I was going to be a neurosurgeon, not because I had any real interest in opening up people's minds or anything like that. I just thought that it was a tough position, and um, it was something that I thought I'd be able to do. So when people would ask me, what are you going to do? I'd puff up my chest and I'd be like, I'm a neurosurgeon. Well, it's great to say, 9 years later, I am not a neurosurgeon. Um, Life obviously has its own plans. God definitely has his own plans. But all I'm trying to say right now is sometimes we think we know and are expected to know things that maybe we don't know. Actually, more often than not, we just don't know full stop. And from that, I'm going to I'm going to ask that we turn our Bibles to, I have the verse here, 1 second. There's like a lot of verses I'm having to flick through. Just bear with me a moment, please. Yes, can someone turn to Proverbs 9, verse 10? Unless you're a Bible scholar and you can just say it off your head. Can someone please turn to Proverbs 9, verse 10? I'm going to need a confident reader. Who's feeling confident? Proverbs 9, verse 10.
Proverbs 9, verse 10. This is the Good News Testament Bible. To be wise, you must first have reverence for the Lord. If you know the Holy One, you have understanding.
Thank you, Mame. Beautifully read. Um, the Bible version that I was reading is similar to yours. I'm reading from the New International Version. It says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." So many of you probably have heard this verse before. I think when many pastors are trying to get an impactful point across, they may refer to this verse just to remind you that God Himself is the source of wisdom. God Himself is the source of understanding and knowledge. But it's actually a very complex verse when you break it down, because many times as you're studying, as you're going through life, you're expected to know things. The issue with today's society and many of the people that are studying right now is you're expected to know what you're studying. You go to class, you're expected to understand what you're studying. If you're in key stage 3, key stage 4, GCSE, A level, university, whatever aspect of it, you're expected to know what you're doing. You're being tested on your knowledge. Arguably, some may say that you're being tested in your ability to regurgitate information. I'm not here to argue about that. That's a different discussion. But the point is, you're being tested on your knowledge. And when you do tests, it's not based on, what the group is, what the whole group of the class know. It's about what you as an individual know. And what this does is it slowly over time starts to build up this idea that you as a person, you know certain things. And we get so used to thinking like that, we're always thinking in our heads, this is what I know. This is what I know. I know myself, I know this topic, I'm confident in these sorts of areas. And we become, maybe not everyone, but for certain people like myself, it's easy to get confident in saying that, well, I may not know everything, but at least I know everything in this certain area. There are some topics where there are very few people I can imagine can challenge me on it, because I think to myself, these are the things that I know very well. A good example, a simple example could be even the topic of myself. When it comes to you as a person, that's why I tried to ask the question at the start, but I didn't get a massive response. I was going to lead into the question of, do you think someone else could tell you more about yourself than you know about yourself? It was going to be a good question for married individuals and just very close best friends. But where I'm trying to go with all of these questions about knowledge and all of these things that you do know is actually in life, sometimes we have to accept the things that we don't know. Because you'll be very surprised to realize all the things that you don't know in this world. See, I thought I had a very clear plan for my life back when I said I was going to be a neurosurgeon. I thought I had a clear plan for my life back when I was at uni. There's been so many moments in my life where I thought I knew what was going to happen. I don't know what was going on in my mind, but it was almost as if I thought to myself, well, I put these things in place. I've studied this, I've done that. I know how it's going to go. But in reality, it's not like that. As in, it's not always like that. And you realize over time, just in case you don't manage to remember anything else, the only person that actually knows what's going to happen, the only person that actually knows what's best for you, and the only person that knows you better than you know yourself is God. And
Amen.
many of you may hear those things all the time, and you'll be like, yeah, well, pastors be saying that all the time, elders are saying that all the time. But what does that actually mean? What does it mean for God to know you better than you know yourself? What does it mean for in regards to God's wisdom and all of this stuff? What does it mean? Well, I'm just going to take a step backwards, figuratively. I'm going to continue sitting, obviously. But there's another verse I'd like to turn to, and it's 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12. Can I have another confident reader? 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12. Sorry, not to be that person, but it would be slightly worrying if everyone came for Vespers, but no one has a Bible handy. Um, does anyone mind reading besides Mame? 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12.
For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known.
Thank you, Kieli. So this verse says, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face." There's other versions that kind of put more emphasis on it. I was just reiterating what Kieli, the part of it that Kieli had read that I wanted to focus on, where it says, "For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face." Have you ever tried to see something from, actually, I was going to try and break down visually what that meant, but I actually almost feel like many of us may understand. What this verse is trying to say is that what we see, what we think we know, it's not even the real thing. It's not even the actual thing of what it is that we believe we're seeing. What we're seeing isn't even a clear reflection. It's a reflection dimly. We see through the mirror dimly. It's a dim reflection. You know, it's not like that someone's saying it's a representation. I mean, so for some of it, yes, it's a representation. But it goes to say that our understanding of so many things in this life is so small. And yet many times we hold on to that small understanding as if those things that we think we know is going to help us. It's as if those things are going to be what's going to help us in situations, or as if we are going to be able to predict our future based on the small knowledge that we have. And it's only in light of situations which are fully out of your control that you realize that just the limit of what you know, and that the only person, again, that you can trust in, and the only person that actually has wisdom and understanding properly is God. So where I'm trying to go with this is kind of related to a story regarding my life. I feel like sometimes it's fun to just throw Bible verses at people, but it's also good to be able to relate it to your own personal story. And I feel like this happens so many times, so I could literally even talk about today if I wanted to. But I'm going to talk about I want to talk about a moment last year, in the latter part of last year. Um, I'd been working outside of London. I'd been working in Swindon. And for so many reasons, it was important for me to go back to working in London. Um, it wasn't even a case of this is what I want to do. It had gotten to a point where it was something I needed to do. Um, and and I finally found a job. I found a job. I found this interview. These people were hiring, and I was like, okay, let me just, you know, quick prayer, send over the application, yeah, and see how it goes. A problem that I realized I've had in the past is sometimes when I see an opportunity, I jump first, and then I'll be like, oh shoot, I've already jumped. Um, Let me pray for it that this is what God wanted me to do. You know, that's just the way that I've been. Sometimes it works in my favor, but as you're going to learn in this story, sometimes it does not. And so I go for like I have this interview, I have a phone call. Um, with the person, and we're just kicking it off. We're connecting straight off the bat, and I'm thinking to myself, this is going very well. You know, have you ever had a conversation with someone and you can already tell that they like you? Like you're saying jokes that aren't even funny, and they're laughing, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I've definitely got this job. We haven't even talked about the job specifications or the hours, but I felt so confident. The lady's like, oh yes, we'd love to be able to have you come over for a face-to-face interview tomorrow. And I was like, wow, a bit short notice, but I can't like risk not taking this opportunity. So I tell my manager literally on the day, do you mind if I take tomorrow a half day? And so the next day, yeah, literally in the middle of the workday, I'm having to take a train from Swindon, which is near Wales, over to Hertfordshire to Bournemouth, which is just on the outskirts of London. I'm pointing as if you can physically see where I'm going, but you'll just have to imagine it. It was a long journey. It was a 3 hour long journey, you know. Um, I was going through my CV in my head. I was going through my different points, and I was going through everything in my head, doing all this preparation all in my head. And I get into the interview room, um, and we say hi, everything. Interviews during this time of life is actually very strange because you have to imagine I'm wearing my face mask during the whole interview. I can't actually see her facial expressions at all. Imagine doing an interview and all you're seeing is someone's eyes. Different experience. But anyway, the whole point is the interview starts where she's asking me questions, and honestly, I feel like God Himself is the one that's speaking and responding to these questions because I'm putting together different experiences and stuff in my life that it almost sounds too good to be true. It almost sounds like it's been scripted, you know? And so I finished this interview and I am so certain that I've got it. I'm mentally in my head, I'm already making plans to move over. I moved my stuff over from Swindon back to London. Yeah, I'm already thinking, oh, I can't wait tomorrow to come back to work and tell my manager, yeah, you're not going to be seeing me for much longer. So I was just there mentally preparing myself for all of that stuff. And I was so confident. I had it all in my head. I remember I was sitting there with my friends on Friday, and because on Friday was when I was going to get the phone call to confirm that I got the job, I told my friends, "Oh yeah, she's gonna call today, so um, like if my phone rings, I might just have to go into the corner, but I've got the job." And they're like, "Are you sure? Did the interview go well?" I was like, "Yeah." Like they were asking me about the hours. They were asking me about the salary. Like they want to give me the job, you know? Like at this point, I don't even know if like it seems like they want to give me the job more than I even want the job itself, was how it sounded. And I'm so happy about all of this stuff. Um, I mean, yes, I was praying and everything, but I was so certain I knew that it was mine. Yeah, I knew it was mine. So you must imagine my surprise when Friday comes, it's getting to Friday evening and there's no phone call. There's nothing. Um, and it's weird because essentially I've skipped through lots of parts of the story, but it's like I've gone through the initial stages. I've gone through the initial interview. I've gone through the second interview. I've gone through the final interview. I've even gotten through to the like just me, the last bit where maybe it's just you competing with one other person. And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what's going on? I found it a bit awkward, but I was like, let me send an email. And so I send an email over to ask if, there's been any response. No response. Um, and then the next Monday, in the middle of the day, I remember I was at work. Yeah, it's so weird going back to work after going through all of this stuff and imagining quitting your job and moving over to another position. I'm in the middle of the job and they call and they're like, we really did like you, Eddie. We really did. But we just felt like you weren't what we're looking for, like what you were looking for and what we were looking for, there was someone else that just fit it just a bit more. And all of a sudden, I was gutted. I remember I was gutted because, well, for multiple reasons. One, I actually genuinely did need to move back to London. And two, it was because I'm used to failure. I think many people don't talk about failures enough, but I'm used to not always getting things happening my way. But this one hurt more because this time I told everybody. I told my family, I told my friends, even my judges, my grandparents in Uganda were knowing about this whole job. And they were all so confident because I was confident. And now I'm sitting here looking like a fool because they're talking about, oh, so what time did they say that you're starting? And I have to walk around and be like, I didn't get it. Um, and I remember sitting down and praying, and I said, look, God, I thought that I knew that this job was what you wanted for me because at that time, it seemed so good. It managed to hit all the requirements. I sat there thinking to myself that surely this is God. You know, I sat there and I thought I understood what God's plan was for me, but clearly I didn't. Um, to go on quickly with the rest of the story, because I won't lie to you, there aren't really like enough faces looking back to me to know whether or not people are being enticed by the story. Um, I'm just going along on the vibes that people are. Oh, but yeah, I was just going to say what ends up happening in the next couple of weeks is the lady that had interviewed me felt that even though I wasn't able to get the job with her, she wanted to still pass on my CV to one of the other people that was going to be hiring. And through a lot of interviews and everything, I managed to get another job in the same company, or even
Amen.
under the, Amen. We do thank God.
Amen.
Thank God. Thank you. And um, it, but I know that I've summarized the last bit of it very quickly, just because of time, and I do actually want to land on a different point. But that whole moment um, kind of made me realize that sometimes I think that I know what God wants for me in my life. And this was perfectly timed because at that time I was reading the story of Job. Who knows who Job is? All right. I'm going
I
to
do.
thank you. So Job was a man that was very faithful. In fact, in fact, it was the fact he was so faithful that got him in a bit of a tough situation, you know, because many times when bad things happen, you think bad things happen to bad people. But this was not the case for Job. It was actually the fact that he was so faithful. It was the fact that he stuck by God all the time that had got him in the situation where Satan was being allowed to test Job. And so he took all of Job's cattle. He took all of Job's children. Many of you may not have children who are listening, but I can't imagine how devastating that is. When you read it in the Bible, sometimes it just sounds like a story. But can you imagine, like, losing everything that you have, everything that made you who you were? Um, yeah, it can be very devastating. And to make it matters worse, he then he then continued to still worship God throughout all of it. And then he starts, because of this, the next part of the test begins, where even his health his health is being taken from him. His skin becomes covered in disgusting boils or whatever, and it's all itchy, it's painful, it's just like everything is going wrong for him. Even his wife turns against him and she's like, why are you still worshiping God? Imagine that's your wife. Yeah, so Job feels like he's pretty much alone. His friends come over to comfort him, and but after comforting him, do you know what they say? Oh, you don't know what they say. What they say to him, I'll tell you. They tell Job, let's be honest, Job, bad things happen to bad people because God is a just God. You know, you claim to be a good person, but if you were a good person, would all of these things be happening to you? And so imagine the same people you called your friends are now coming here, and they're the ones that are accusing you, saying that you're actually evil. The same people you confided are now the same people that are turning against you. This was what Job was going through. And so at this time, Job and his friends are now arguing about or discussing the personality of God. They're discussing God and their knowledge of God, and is God right or wrong? Sorry, is God just? Well, they're saying that God is just, but then Job is saying that he is also just, and what he's going through is unfair. He's not saying anything against God. He's just trying to say what he knows about God. Can anyone turn to Job 38 verse 2 for me, please? I believe it is. Job 38 verse 2.
It says, "Who are you to question my wisdom with your ignorant, empty words?"
Amen. Beautifully read. Thank you so much for reading. So just for more context, this whole time, that Job has lost his family, this whole time that Job has lost his cattle, this whole time that Job has lost his health, this whole time that Job has even lost his wife and his friends. Well, I don't know. Like at this point, he didn't really lose them, but it's arguable as to whether or not they're really his friends or not, with some of the things that they were saying. Yeah. And this whole time, God has been silent. God has never spoken to Job this whole time this story is going on. And so when Job is there, he's talking to his friends and he's trying to defend himself. He's talking about his knowledge of God. And yet you see that now when God first speaks in Job chapter 38, verse 2, he asked Job the equivalent of, who are you? Who are you to be asking, to be trying to say, you know who I am? Who are you to be trying to claim to have an understanding of my plans? Who are you to be trying to tell me or tell others about what I do? If you have more time, I would encourage you to read the rest of Job 38 and 39 in your own time, because it really does put into context just how complex a person God is. You know, if you think about the story of not even the story, the plan of God to save us from Adam, even before Adam to now, it's so complex. When you think about creation and every single animal, when you have a moment, watch the National Geographic and just look at some of these animals and the way that they were made. It doesn't make sense. Scientists are still struggling to understand, forget space, they're struggling to understand even things that are happening here on Earth. They talk about evolution and everything. I'm not going to dive deep on that one, but they don't understand animals. We try to record their behaviors and all this stuff, but how can we, as part of the creation, understand the workings of the Creator? And this was something that has been very humbling for me in my life as of late, because there's been so much stuff that's been out of my control. There's been so much stuff that's been outside of my understanding. And so in that moment, when you realize Job, a faithful man who arguably probably has a stronger relationship with God than I do, is being told, who are you? It makes me sit there and think to myself, who am I You know, who am I to be going around saying, oh, I know what God is going to do in my life? Who am I to tell other people I know what God is going to do in their life? Like I can't tell you what's going to happen. I genuinely can't. But we only know a few things. We know that at the end of the day, God works for the good of those that, okay, you may not have heard, but my mom said love him. Okay, thanks, mom. So there we know at the end of the day, God loves us and he works for the good of those that love us. And don't misquote this verse, because I remember people used to misquote this verse to me and they would make it seem that, oh, well, because God loves us, he's going to do things that are good for us, you know, in and of that moment. No, he won't. Our problem as human beings is that sometimes we're so focused on the present. Okay, so let me just give you an example. Yeah. Imagine you need money to get home. Yeah. You're stranded at the bus stop. You need to catch a bus or a taxi or something like that to get home. As humans, what will you think? God, please give me money to get me home. Yes, that's the immediate good. That's the right now and the present good. But God is so complex. God is so mind-blowingly complex that he can be looking so far ahead, you know, and saying that maybe you need to be in this situation where you don't have money, so that maybe you can meet someone and in that moment you can testify about him and his character. Maybe you need to go for that walk because as you walk from wherever you are to your house, you may find your way and be able to get a bit of peace as you walk. I don't know if anyone's done that, but one time instead of taking the transport they wanted, they were forced to walk. And in that moment, they felt calmness in the heart. They felt peace in the heart. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you just needed that moment of not having money to remind yourself that God is the only one that you can rely on. Literally, there's any sort of reason why this could happen. But the problem is that sometimes we think of God as an ATM, where it's like, well, if I say a quick prayer to him, like putting money in to an account, if I put the card in, you know, he's going to give me the blessings. You know, if I pray to him, he's going to give me what I immediately need. God doesn't work on your time. He doesn't work on my time. He doesn't work on anyone's time. Sorry, it's like, think about Lazarus. Think about Lazarus. Lazarus was here, yeah. He literally died, you know, he died. That goes to say, and obviously he was resurrected, but that's on God's time. And that was that was genuinely for the good of everyone. Because in that moment, even before Jesus Christ was resurrected, we were able to see that God has power even over death. You know, sin had been holding people in bondage, where the cost of sin is death. The price of sin is death, and you were able to see that God is able to overcome that price, even in what's it called? Even in Lazarus. And what I'm trying to say is that many times in your life, you may be going through something. Honestly, many of us are probably going through things right now, regardless of your age. Don't let anyone make it seem like because you're young, your problems are what's it called, less relevant. If they're relevant to you, they're relevant. They're relevant. No one, who am I to tell you your problems don't matter? You know, they're your problems. All that matters, honestly, is that you know that God has big plans for you. And sometimes you may not even be able to see it. You may not be able to understand it. But that's why it's so important for us to have faith in God. And many times people are going to tell you, have faith in God, have faith in God, have faith in God. But it's important that you understand the only way you can get faith in God is by knowing God. My brother Andre is here as well. And many times, I haven't been able to go through the name list. If anyone else is here, thank you so much for coming. Hope you are blessed. I was just going to say that the only reason I can have faith in Andre, you know, if Andre tells me he's going to do something, I believe he's going to do it. But I don't believe he's going to do it without me having any sort of relationship with him. You know, I need to have a relationship with Andre so that when he tells me, Eddie, yeah, I'm going to be meeting you here at this time. Yeah. Are you going to be there? He said, sorry, that's a really bad example. I was just imagining the times when I have been late. I was saying that if Andre told me he was going to do something, I'd believe him without a doubt because I trust him and I know him. But if you don't have a relationship with God, how can you have faith with God? How can I believe in someone that I don't know at all? I'm not saying that as you have your relationship with God, you'll understand it 100%. I'm not saying that. I would never say that. Remember where we started from. We talked about the mirror and the reflection. We see through the mirror dimly. Our nature as we are as human beings prevents us from being able to properly understand God as we are right. I don't even, I'm not going to go so far and talk about what we'll be able to understand in the next life, because I still think there's going to be so much we won't understand. But it's important that we make those active steps, just with any sort of friend that you're trying to make. Yeah, if you want to make friends, if you want to get close to someone and be able to trust them, you have to get to know them. And so it all goes full circle to the earlier verse that we read, which says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." There's just one more text. Just bear with me, one more text that I wanted to read before I closed. So this text is Matthew 16, verse 17. Just for time, I'm going to read. It says, "Jesus replied, 'You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being.'" Just for context, this is when Jesus asks the disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they responded that some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, some say Jeremiah, some say other prophets. And then so he asked Jesus, very wise Jesus. He says, "Well, who do you say I am?" And Simon Peter, a normal human being like you and me, said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Mind you, at this point, Jesus hasn't risen from the dead. Jesus, hasn't ascended to heaven. Jesus has done miracles, yes, but to be able to say with confirmation, with confidence, that you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. That is why Jesus said, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being." Real wisdom, real understanding, real peace can only come from God. Peace in itself is a fruit of the Spirit, actually, for anyone. So if you're in a moment in life where you feel anxious, I feel anxious all the time. When you're in a moment where you need patience because you're waiting for things to come, that's another fruit of the Spirit. When you need all of these things, when you need wisdom, when you need understanding, sometimes it's easy to want to turn to your friends because they'll be able to tell you what you need to hear. But Jesus is meant to be your friend. God is meant to be your friend. And who knows better than him? I know I'm saying this with a lot of vim, but it's actually because I'm trying to tell myself the same things I'm telling you. It's easy to hear these things when you're in a good place, but when you're in a bad place, it's hard. So on that note, I just wanted to encourage us all that it's okay to say you don't know. It's actually perfectly okay to say that you don't know some of these things. But that's why I encourage you to find the one person that does know these things and is more than willing and happy to tell you what you need to hear. As always, I said one last verse, but my heart loves this verse. So I'm going to end on this one. It is Matthew 7, and I believe verse 7, which says, "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." So take that with encouragement. Take that whenever you're trying to talk to God, Take that with encouragement that he's there and he wants that conversation. He wants to help you understand him. Well, just to understand. So yes, I've definitely overspoken. I don't actually know how long this is supposed to go on for. I was just allowing the Spirit to lead, but I hope something here stuck with you, and